Good morning and welcome to part 3 of the How to Edit Your Novel series. Today we're going to be discussing line editing, but before we do that I wanted to kind of break down the various phases of editing so it's a little more understandable because so many terms are thrown around and not everybody knows what they mean. So up until this point, what you've seen me do is self-editing, and that's the first stage to turning out a draft that you feel confident passing off to an editor. But when you pass that off to an editor, what does that mean exactly, and what are you asking that editor to do? And the answer is conditional. It depends. Most people, if you're going through the full process, especially if you're trying to be traditionally published, you're going to go to a developmental editor. So my developmental editor, her name is Alita Winterheimer of Word Essential, does an amazing job of picking apart the plot. So her goal is not to look at my prose and say, hey Chris, you use this word a lot, or hey Chris, this is kind of stilted. What she's looking for are the big picture issues. Inaccuracies, things that don't work in the plot, bad characterization. And so typically when you go to a developmental editor, when you're finished with that work, you have to do a rewrite, a significant rewrite of the entire novel. And then once you complete that developmental edit, then you move on to the line edit. And the line editor's job is to spot last-minute inaccuracies, generally smaller things, and also to work on your prose. So you may have stilted prose or, as you know, Bob, dialogue where you are kind of doing too much exposition, and they're going to look for that, but they're also looking for problems in your prose. They're going to tell you, hey, you reuse this word a lot, maybe you should look for a different one. And you'll see that in the notes in the video that follows. After you are done with your line editor, typically you then have a proofreader or multiple proofreaders go over the document, and their only goal is to look for typos. If they spot something that is wrong, like somebody has brown eyes and they're supposed to have blue, they'll tell you. But also they're going to be looking for misspelled or misused words. So you really have those 4 phases of editing. So just to recap, you've got your self-edit, your developmental edit, your line edit, and your proofread. And I have simplified my process now that I've got over 10 books under my belt, where I'm not directly using a developmental editor at this time, both because of the expense and because of the time involved. For me to get a book out every month, it's very, very challenging, and I don't really have time for that developmental edit. But I want to be clear, I absolutely needed a developmental editor early in my craft, and when I do my epic fantasy, which is going to take a lot more time and attention, I will be using a developmental editor. So don't think you can get away without spending time working on your chops, and trust me, your developmental editor will teach you a lot. In any case, we're going to move into the screen share portion of this video. What we're going to do, we're going to take a look at the document that I've received back from Tammy. She's my line editor, and we're going to take a look at a few of the suggestions that she's made, and then I'm going to show you how things look afterwards. So we'll show the before and the after, and then I will also, in the comments, have a link to the mailing list, and you can sign up and get a copy of this document. So a fully edited version of Void Wraith is available to you as a Scrivener document if you'd like to see it, just by signing up to the mailing list. And if you're already on the mailing list, when you get the email from me, it should contain a link to that. And if it doesn't, you let me know and I'm happy to get you a copy, because I find it fascinating to see this kind of back and forth between the editor and the author. So you can see that Tammy and I have a very conversational tone. We're friends. We've worked together on a lot of books. And so she makes some changes in my document that your editor may not do right away, because they don't have that kind of relationship with you. I give her a lot of free rein because it saves us both time. In any case, if there are questions, let me know. Go ahead and post those down in the comments or shoot me an email, but let's dive right into this. Okay, so as you can see, Tammy has marked the heck out of this document. Over here on the right panel is where notes appear. The first note, the super long one in kind of pink, gives a general overview of some of the things that she changed. She usually starts with one of those. And then you see a bunch of smaller notes that tell me things that need to be worked on individually. So for example, 8-year war needs to be standardized, and she's pointing that out. That's one of the inaccuracies she tends to catch. Her text is in red, mine is in black, and how she got her text to be in red is as simple as going up to format, going down to revision mode, and then going to first, second, third, or fourth revision, depending on what you want to use. That's something that Scrivener offers. It's not as robust as track changes in Microsoft Word, but it's good enough for our purposes. And the advantage of doing it directly in Scrivener is that I don't have to import text from Word, which I've done in the past, and it's not a fun process. So again, you can see that there's notes all over the place, and she makes quite a few edits. I'm just going to scroll through here so you can see the amount of red and the amount of notes. And this is true all the way throughout. And I learn a lot as I'm watching her read stuff. So stuff that was clear in my head may not be clear to her, and she explains to me what's working and what doesn't. And then she'll make changes that will make things clearer to the reader. So as an example, I mentioned EVA. It's a fairly common term in science fiction. It means extravehicular activity. It's basically going outside the ship in a spacesuit. And many people know what that means, but many don't. And so what Tammy added is, in parentheses here, an explanation. Now, I would not have thought to do this, but Tammy did. And it's adding these little details to the book where you as the author are going to get this book to 80%. But to get it to 100%, you need somebody like Tammy going through and making these changes. Also, reading through these can be kind of funny as well. So chapter 18 here, the Primo Conclave, this is one of my favorite notes. Dryker, Christopher Fox, Nolan is 6 gazillion miles away, sliding under tables and shit. So I once again use the wrong name. I've done this throughout where I keep swapping Nolan and Dryker, and she catches those, which is good because if she catches them, you don't. And ultimately, that should be your goal. So this will give you some idea of what she does throughout a document. I'm not going to show you too much more because you'll have the document itself if you sign up for the mailing list, so you can go through and see exactly what she did. But what I am going to show you is the changes I've made. So let's close this document, and behind it, you're going to see my version. So I'm on chapter 25 right now. I've already reintegrated all of her edits through Act 1. So if you look at my version of it, all the notes on the right-hand side are gone. I've processed all those notes and made my changes, but the text is still red, and I'll explain to you why I do that. One of my novels, the second one, No Mere Zombie, I changed it to black every time I finished a chapter, but unfortunately I missed a couple chapters, so when people were reading that book, they would see little bits of red text. So what I'll do when I'm done all the way at the end of the book is you can actually select all of the text through the entire document. You can see it loading here. It's taking a minute because there's so much of it. I just select all of it, and then I can just make it all black. So up here I can change the color. So that'll be the last stage, and you'll get to see kind of what that document looks like. In any case, that's the meat of a line edit. You can see more of what happens when the final document comes out because you can compare void rates as it's released directly to stores versus how it looks in this document. But by and large, 90% of this document is in place when I've integrated Tammy's edits, and the only stage after that is proofreading. So I hope this has been very helpful for you. If you have questions, please feel free to post in the comments or shoot me an email. If the video is helpful, I would love it if you would, share that on any writing forums you're a part of, or just let other authors know that this exists. I would love to bring more people on board and kind of show them how all this is done. In any case, I really appreciate you being with me through this series. This will be the last video on editing, unless I receive a significant number of questions from you, in which case I may do a Q&A session on editing.